friends, you've tuned into Reflections, a program sponsored by Paducah Cooperative Ministry, where together we do God's work with human hands. I'm Reverend Karen Winkel. I pastor United Church of Paducah here in Paducah, and my co-host, Gregory Waldrop, isn't with us today in body, but he is with us in spirit, because I know he's so much a part of this program, and I know you've come to love him. With me today is Char Downs, who is one of our Lowertown artists and a transplant to Paducah, pulled by the creative spirit to Lowertown and to join that community. Char has Pinecone Gallery, and one of the things that I'm aware of is that probably the average person doesn't enough appreciate how creativity and faith or spirituality come together, either as part of the process or in terms of the work that a person is doing. So Char's here to share with us, and part of a series that we have of inviting artists in. So Char, welcome, and
thank you.
I want to hear just a little bit of how it is that you got pulled to Paducah and what you found.
That's
now that you're here.
Quite a story, a long one.
A long one.
I had heard about the Artist Relocation program. I was part of a professional practices course, 6-month course in California. And during that time we heard about artists and how they were being treated and invited to Paducah. And there was the one artist in particular, Connie Noyes, that she was the one we heard about, and everybody in the class was talking about this wonderful program. And every one of the artists, you know, were thinking, oh, we could go. I wish I could go. And at that point, I had the same feeling that I wished I could have gone. But I had just moved into a new house that I had looked for 4 years, and there was just no consideration. So we went through the course and we did everything, and then a year later my husband lost his job, and I had been doing all of the things in the practice, the course, and I went to see the consultant that was associated with the course, and she told me, you're doing everything right, and but you seem to be kind of down. What's the problem? And I said, well, these are all moot points. My husband has lost his job, so I don't know what I'm going to be doing, in the future, or even where I'll be. And she looked at me kind of funny. She said, come over here and sit down. So I sat down on the couch, and she picked up a magazine off of the table, and she opened it up to a full-page ad about the Artist Relocation program. It said Paducah. And it was like this light bulb went on in my brain. And she said, I think I've just changed your life. And she had. Because at that point, I was free to consider any place that I wanted to go. Now, I've lived a lot of places, and that we'll come back to that later. But from that point on, I went and I talked to my husband. I said, sit down. And he thought he'd, done some husbands. When you say sit down, I have to talk to you. And I told him, reminded him about the program, and he said, well, why don't we go look? So we came in the middle of August, and we checked it out. We saw the neighborhood. It was beautiful. We met the artists. I wanted to meet everyone. We stayed with Frida Fairchild, and we met them all. And it was like I was speaking to my family. Mm-hmm. Everybody collected the same things I collected. They had the same things in their studio. We spoke the same language. Mm-hmm. So it was like I knew I was supposed to be here. And so we went back, and of course we went through the process of meeting Tom and Mark Baroni and thinking about our proposal. And I came back at the end of August, the beginning of September again to do those meetings and get everything started and do the proposal. And then we were on our way. I mean, there's a whole story about how we got our place and went through a whole process, but by October 1st, I was here. We came across country. We loaded everything up in the truck. I spent my last 2 nights in San Francisco at an open studio at the Triton Hotel. It's a show for artists. They do the whole floor. And we came across country after that, packed up the truck, and came here. And to the point to where I've said I've lived a lot of different places. The community here, welcoming us, talking to us every time we'd be on anywhere, they would walk up to us and say, "Thank you for coming here." The hospitality of the place was very much like the aloha spirit in Hawaii. It was very much here, and I hadn't had that anyplace else in the many places that I've lived. And it's like I've told many people, now I'm getting all emotional about it. I had looked for this place for many years, and I had dreamed this place a long time, and I knew when I'd found it.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's a wonderful place.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I want to thank you for sharing that because there can be something at work in our lives that we're not even sure what it is or what its timing is, but I would say there's a spirit piece to your story that's quite profound, and it's clearly met a deep need that you've had and longed for, and how marvelous it is when we have those moments of discovery. And I'm glad you found
it happens.
Not just a place to live, but a community of the heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So your identity as an artist, have you always been an artist or felt yourself to be an artist?
Always. From the time I remember, I had pencils and brushes and paints and made things from when I was small. And there were others in my family, I'm the youngest of 6, that they might draw a little bit or they painted a little bit through their life. Or my mother was very artistic as far as how she directed her energies. But I was the one that continued with it, and throughout school got in trouble with it because that's what I would be doing, and it's always been a part of my life.
And connecting art and creativity to the life of the spirit, have you understood that as integral, or was there a discovery for you at some point along the way that would bring your spiritual life and your life as an artist together?
I was raised as a Southern Baptist, so I was very aware of the soul and the spirit from a very young age. And it's just, there's no separating the two. When you're doing art, when you're creating, there's a place that you go if you can get there with all the distractions and everything that happens. It's just like prayer. It's everything goes away, and there's that communication, and it's very in today's world with all the distractions and everything, it's very difficult to get there. But when you get there, you know it, and the whole world disappears, and you're there either speaking with God or speaking with that piece, that medium, whatever you're using.
Yeah, even before you said it, the word that had come to my mind is prayer, that there is a place to go where something is possible, where it isn't just you anymore, but something is happening that you're relating with and listening to. And
there's that force. I mean, it has to be, I guess there's names for it, but you know, when you name something, it gets labeled, and it minimizes it sometimes. But there's that force that takes over, and you can try to direct it yourself, and it doesn't work. There's something working through you.
Because what you need is some transcendence, and that doesn't happen if you can't let go to something larger.
If there are interruptions, if there are distractions, if you're having emotional problems, you know, it takes longer to get there, to focus and to concentrate. But prayer is the way it starts, or some people call it meditation, prayer, focusing on the Spirit.
Well, I know you've brought some samples of your work to share with us, and I would like to turn to those now if we could. I'll ask, there we go, here we go. We've got the first one. Tell us the name of this piece and describe it as best you can.
Well, it's a piece that, as you probably saw in the paper, there are a small group of artists that are going to do murals for Ingram Barge on the floodball. And I've been doing murals for more than 30 years, and this is one that I did with my daughter in Antioch, California. It's 85 feet long and 20 feet tall. And the call for artists had a certain list of a number of things that you have to put in. And normally when you have a call like that, the idea is that the artist does a proposal of one of those things that they would like to have in the mural, and that's their proposal. Well, I looked at the list and I put everything I could in there that would refer to this. This is a celebration of the town's founding. And you see the man in black there is, he was a preacher. He was the one that recruited the people to come to the town.
This is over on the left.
He has a Bible in his hand. He's on the left, dressed in black. There were twins. He was a twin, and at this time when they founded the town, it was called Antioch because that's where two rivers meet.
Oh, okay.
And it's just, I mean, no. Here, two rivers meet also.
Okay, so there's a
Just
connection
kind of a
for you on a
connection
personal
for me
level. Yeah.
there. And so it's the celebration of the 125th anniversary, and they had this mural painted, and it's got people in it of founders and people who are heroes of the town. It's a town about 45 miles outside of San Francisco. It was a shipping area on the river. The one man with the gray beard was a captain, and he brought his daughter to Antioch. She was 12 years old, and she was the first teacher of Antioch, and she taught the sailors on his ship to read and write. And then when she came to Antioch, she founded a school there.
Marvelous.
So this is just a general history about the first building, the first people, and what happened in the town. And this train represents the trains that brought the coal from the mountains, and the kids in the mining towns. They rode the empty trains down to go to school early in the day, and then the train would be empty, and it would go back and take them back to the mining towns.
Well, that would be a daunting task of work of that size. Here's another very different medium.
Right. This
And
is
a
a wood
different,
carving.
different scope.
Yes, I do a lot of different things. When you're doing art, there's points where you've come to a place in a piece, whether it's a painting or a carving or whatever, and you're like, there's no place else to go. So instead of stopping and waiting for that inspiration again, I will go to something else, another medium, and start with that. And this is a wood carving, and it's I enjoy child stories and fantasies. This is a dragon. It's called the Watch Dragon. And this is one of my mixed media paintings. It's more the style of the painting that I do now. It's on paper. I use a lot of different mediums: color pencil, paint, felt tip pens, watercolor, acrylic. And this is called Of Dogs and Cats. And I've had a lot of dogs and cats in my life, and I love God's creatures, and this is a portrayal of different pets and animals, and it's kind of in an abstract form. So you really have to look and search in my painting.
That's what I enjoyed, was when it first flashed onto the screen. I saw color and shapes, and then it kind of drew me in, and I thought, I recognize those shapes. Those are favorite critters.
I like people in my work on paper. I like the fact that people can take the time to not just glance at it and have it a glance and then they go. It draws people in the way God can draw you in and show you a path. And this is a path of stories and shapes and forms and colors, but they also morph into each other and change and do different things.
Let's look at the next. There we go.
This is a mural that I did in Florida. It's an allegory of the Garden of Eden. On the left, you can't see it, but there's a young girl in her blouse. She's Eve, and on the right there's a man, and he's Adam. They represent Adam and Eve symbolically. And then there's a snake down at the bottom that you can see that the girl looks like she's almost reaching for. And they are on the side of there's a lush tropical side on the right of the highway, and on the left there's the desert where they were cast out, you know, when she did her thing with the apple symbolically and all of that. And it's just that small representation of that particular story in the Bible, with a lot of other things to go with it. The black and white photoreal images are on panels that are projected and connected to the wall and come out from the wall, so that when the light shines on the wall, the shadows create different colors behind on the wall. So it's two-dimensional. It's more of a sculptural mural that I worked with there. And of course the masks, they're the representation of people and the masks that they wear during their life, and how you have to remove those to really connect with people and with God.
Beautiful.
This is one of my favorites, and it's got a whole story behind it also. In California, they have yearly a fundraiser for nonprofits, and they tried to figure out a way to have artists participate. So what they did was they had 100 pine plane boxes made, and they invited 100 artists to take these boxes and create a piece of art from it. And the rules were it couldn't project out more than a foot from each side or from the top or the bottom. And if you cut pieces out of it, you had to use those pieces in the work.
Okay, interesting.
And so this is kind of a allegory related to the Bible also. One of my favorite stories. It's called Eve's Ritual Box, after the garden. So it was a consideration of all of us who have to have traditions and what do you call those? Not habits, but methods of doing things that remind you of what you should or shouldn't do, depending on what the tradition is. And this was that tradition of reminding Eve about her mistake in the garden, symbolically. There's this is the full back face of the box, and on the two sides, that's the inside of the box, there's the surprise of when she remembers what she did that was wrong, and on the other side there's the face that is in tears for repentance. And inside there's the carved pieces, of course, that are continuation of the leaves of her headlay. And there's a hematite stone there, which is symbolic of the heart, and the turquoise inside the nose area is symbolic of the world. And there, on each corner, there's a snake, symbolic of the snake, in the garden, and it has the water, the air, the fire, and the earth, the symbols on each of those. It's a very beautiful piece. It's at Jay's Cafe if anyone wants to go see it. It's on display there, and
Locally on
2nd Street.
Beautiful.
This
is very different from what we've just seen.
Yes, this is. I usually don't like telling people about what my pieces are. I like them to look at them and get their own feelings and their own ideas about them, take their own path. But this is my rendition of stories were told to me when I was young, from the Bible and from books and from everywhere, and how they affected me. And the title is They Taught Me the Colors of Lightning. And those stories entered my heart that way.
Powerful,
Yes.
powerful.
So there I am, right down there on the bottom, peeking out from under the book.
Okay.
And all of those
Yeah.
things are the imaginations and
Yeah.
the stories and the tales and the legends and the excitement of
Yeah.
and the
All
mystery and the
vividness
fear
of that too. I'm
yeah.
appreciating. Let's look at the next one if we can.
And this is the last one. It's called The Trouble with Communication. And it's generally a story about people speaking to each other, and they may not be speaking to each other because one person is saying something and another person is saying something, and they're not connecting. There's so many levels to communication, and it's had the same with God. I mean, you may be speaking to him or trying to speak to him, but you're not quite there yet. There's a further place you need to go to connect and to make more of an effort, because communication is a very difficult thing to deal with. So
Even communicating with ourselves.
oh yes, we can fool ourselves
You
very
bet.
easily.
You bet. You bet.
And this is the last sculpture, I think is the last sculpture that I have. This is more of an ecological statement about the earth and my concern for the things that are on the earth. This is called Trying to Remember Trees 2050, the year 2050. And just people, and they have these bare branches there in their minds, and if we keep going the way we are, where will our trees go? It's just a symbolic travel into that particular mindset. And here's a painting, a mixed media painting. It's more representational. I use the same technique. My technique of painting is I throw paint, I drip, I scrub in, I create, and I destroy. Because during that process, there's the process of this little voice in your mind going, "Oh, you can't touch that. Don't touch it. It's too good. You don't do anything." But in destroying it, you can always bring it back. And that's one of the favorite ways of painting that I do. And this one, of course, is my love of animals and this dog's ownership of that particular area of that couch.
Yes. Which many people will be able to relate to. Well, just briefly tell me a little bit about Pinecone Gallery, where it's located. I know that you're using that as a way to share the gifts of artists in the community.
It's on 421 North 7th Street. And my idea of coming here was not just to show my work. There are artists in Kentucky and in the region, the area, that new artists, and I wanted them to have the opportunity to share their focus and their art with the rest of the community. So I show other people's art. I introduce new artists, and I have established artists that I show in the gallery. We change shows every 2 to 3 months, and it's exciting because when I opened, the minute I opened, there were young people who came in, and they wanted to, talk to me about their art, and they wanted to show their art, and they were afraid of that rejection, but I was very happy to schedule them. And so I'm scheduled for the next 3 years.
Well, marvelous, marvelous. Yeah. But I think that that initiative that people showed to share with you what they had done and your openness to it, to me, suggests a working of the Spirit, that
Right.
almost as though folks got directed to you. Our time is so limited, and I want to be able to have you share with folks the book that you've brought. We've been inviting people to bring a book that that has personal meaning, and this one I know has quite personal
Absolutely.
meaning.
This was a book that my husband and I, through a series of events, ended up doing about Lowertown. And I'm a photographer also. And this was our introduction to more of the community and people getting to know us and forming that bond with the community.
Here, hold it up and
We,
the camera can get up there.
This one? Or
Yeah,
this
there
one?
you go.
My husband went to people's homes and collected these older photographs. This is called Lowertown Then and Now. And we found people's old photos and old albums, and in particular the area of Lowertown. And then I would go and find this place if it was still there, and I would take the now shot of it. And just that particular sharing, it was a vehicle. I mean, we have this as a concrete result, but it was a vehicle for us to be introduced into the community and the people to get to know us. And it's a gift really to the community, because they've just been wonderful to us.
One of the members of my church, when I got ready to go to California to visit my mom for Thanksgiving last year, said, "I want your mother to know that Paducah really does exist." And she gave me a copy of that book to take home. And I don't know what my mom thought of it, but as I looked at each picture and read the captions that go with each, it helped me appreciate how much Paducah has come to feel like home. And so I don't know I don't know what my mom thought, but it certainly was a gift to me to be given that to my
That's
gift of
wonderful.
my mother.
It's an amazing thing, this community. And my favorite is the corner of Madison and 7th, where Lori Cody lives. This house, and this is during the '37 flood, and the people are there waiting to be rescued with their little animals. And then the now is with all of the artists that have relocated here by the Artist Relocation Program. So it's just, this is where I'm supposed to be at this point in my life.
Well, clearly, and if you've got 3 years worth of shows booked at your gallery, you've got plenty to keep you invested in the community and busy. And I know you're involved in other ways as well. I know that Lowertown isn't all that your life is here, because I saw you in a production recently.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
Char, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing, giving us just a little taste. I mean, as I've viewed your work, it makes me want to dive in more, and would be for me kind of like an ice cream parlor. Which do I choose first?
Right.
But thank you for coming and sharing and blessing us really with your work and with the story of how you came to Paducah. I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and do however you can, wherever you can, whenever you can, join with Paducah Cooperative Ministry in doing God's work with human hands. Thank you, and shalom.